Welcome back. Well, after calls for his resignation, Philip Kinisu has now resigned. This comes after the Legal Affairs Committee asked the MPs to sanction a tribunal to investigate him. Parliament had recommended his sacking after it found that he hadn't fully revealed his ties with a company that had transacted business with the embattled National Youth Service. Kinisu insists the issue of conflict of interest never arose and reads nothing but malice.
To mislead our whole chair and our whole committee. When we met you.
Mr. Chairman, those are the records which I had available to me at the time.
Yeah.
The company has moved premises, and we have now got all the documents which I have presented.
What you showed me in defense of the fact that you were director as at that time was a purported resignation that appeared to have been in 2008. And that's why we believed you.
So there we have the embattled Kinisu finally, literally being pushed out of office. Finally, he put his hands up and says he's not fighting this battle anymore. And just yesterday, we had Anne Waiguru on the show swearing that she almost did no wrong. She was a whistleblower. And then today we have this Kinisu resigning. It seems like the whole issue of stepping aside for investigations or for whatever it is a sticky one in Kenya. But the man has finally done it. Should we applaud him? Or should we say, why didn't you go earlier?
Hell no. I mean, surely he should not be applauded for anything. It's ironical that someone who is tasked with making sure that we hold the highest level of integrity is the person who would say, I did not disclose my communication, or rather my integration with NYS, because I didn't see a conflict of interest. You don't need to be educated to see there's a conflict of interest in the company that you're going to investigate.
But to be fair to him, he actually did disclose that he had dealings with that company, and that company had dealt with the NYS.
But that was
before he was hired.
Yes.
That
then
was
he stepped aside,
yes,
leaving it to his wife and his daughter.
But there's a whole, how do you call this, a huge gap. I mean, the moment EACC started investigating NYS, he should have stepped aside and said, you guys, I want to put myself aside, let you guys, because my company, exactly, due to my prior engagements, this might cast a shadow one way or the other on this investigation. So by virtue of him not even thinking that it's going to be a problem, it's crazy. No, he should have gone.
It's crazy, but this is Kenya, Betty.
It shouldn't be.
I know it's a very defeatist thing to say.
I'm having so many thoughts right now, but because right now I'm just remembering Kimunya saying I'd rather die than resign. That's what's going on in my head. Yes. But Njambi brings up a very important point about being able to understand the distinction. What standards are we talking about when we're talking about integrity? Some of the questions that arose after yesterday's show with Waiguru were, why should she be on television and she has issues of integrity, she should not be in the media. I thought the opposite. I thought, actually, that's the opportunity. You should now ask her. You should now challenge her on chapter 6. You should now challenge Kinisu on chapter 6. You should ask him and find out, do these people really understand what we're looking for? Do they understand the different, is there a black and white scenario going on in their heads when they're being vetted? And or is it just, finally I got this job and the perks are great, I'm not leaving this no matter what. Even if I say this and it's clear there's a conflict of interest, I'm going to keep quiet about it later and let people force me out.
But if you're strictly within the parameters of the law, strictly speaking, does integrity then become a moral issue which we cannot really define? Does chapter 6 tell us exactly what to do in every situation? Are we trying to interpret it?
And that's the problem that we have with this constitution, that a lot of things were left up in the air for Kenyans themselves to decide for themselves. What does integrity mean for us? We have a situation where we have been told for many years that we are only 42 ethnic communities. We are not. We are a lot more than that. And our cultural and our ethnic differences fully inform how we see life, how we interact with each other, and what determines what is integrity. Later on, I'm sure we're going to talk about, the party hopping and what have you. But that, again...
finish your thoughts.
We can't run away also from the fact that
we have to define it for ourselves, finally.
That he becomes the shortest serving, head of this, anti-corruption agency at 10 months. Maybe fundamental issues also.
That's a record. Yeah.
Right, and meanwhile, in the search for the next CJ, today the JSC took Justice David Maraga to task over his suitability, rather, to be the country's next top judge. Maraga had to contend with moral questions of assisted suicide and shutting down life machines. He was also asked about his faith and what would happen if he had to hear a matter on Saturday, which is his day of worship.
What are your views on lesbians, gays, and intersex persons?
The lesbians and homosexuals, yes. These are people who have chosen their way of life. It is, of course, I mean, quite a number of faiths condemn that. The law will deal with them according to what what our law is. For example, if you look at the Marriage Act, the new Marriage Act, and even I believe it's also the Constitution. Marriage is between a man and a woman. So you will go by those principles, and it all depends actually on what issue you are dealing with. It depends on what issue you are dealing with of these people. So that's how you will deal with it. The others of intersex, that one is a completely different aspect. These are not people who have chosen to be what they are. And the law should deal with them differently.
So earlier, my editor Joe Agay was saying that these are some modern day challenges for any CJ that you have to be scrutinized on this. It just made me thinking, to what extent does personal beliefs and your thoughts on issues, ideological stance on issue, to what extent should they be scrutinized with regard to your conduct should you take the seat of the Chief Justice? What are your thoughts on this, Njambi?
As with every profession, there is that fight between your personal, I think we spoke about it even for the media, your personal views and what exactly is mandated. And that is what we're seeing with the judicial search for a CJ and the others. So we can only hope that, for starters, integrity. I keep saying this over and over again. When we got Willy Mutunga, we thought, oh my God, the judiciary is going to be transformed. But he had to deal with a lot of things.
Right.
Ultimately, what I hope is we're not going to be doing PR in its own stead. We're going to get someone who actually stands up to integrity and is not part of a cartel.
Right. And Betty, if you've been following this, this vetting that started on Monday and the kind of questions that the JSC is asking, do you think we are asking the right questions?
I wondered to how much Willy Mutunga actually influenced this, because as we know, he does have very liberal views on homosexuals, lesbians, gays, and trans and intersex people. Having said that, I agree with Maranga's approach to it, and that is to stick within the law, the mandate of the law, and not to abuse the rights of these are citizens, whether they chose to or not. These are citizens, so you cannot go so far and impose your morality from your religious views or whatever sort of version of integrity you have. We've just had this conversation. Whatever version of integrity you have, and then you impose yourself on the rights of citizens of this country. But having said that, I really don't think that's the main issue that they should be looking at. I agree with Jambi. We should be looking at how can he transform this the current judiciary, which is in a lot of trouble.
They did ask him a whole broad range of questions about what he would do as a CJ, but I think they were just trying to find out what kind of person he is, which I think is important. Because like in America, for example, the Supreme Court justices are either far left or far right or somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And of course, their thought processes affect the way they make judgments. And these people are the gatekeepers or the keepers of our jurisprudence and therefore our culture. So we need to know what kind of people they are. But when he speaks about the letter of the law, I wonder about the spirit of the law.
Right.
When you're talking about homosexuals and intersex people, there needs to be some empathy. Because if you just apply the law the way it is, then we'd have a whole lot of people in jail or whatever the punishment is for being a homosexual.
And for example, some of the line of questioning that we saw today on Maraga, like euthanasia, we don't really have our laws speaking, about this issue. So I don't know what it becomes then. Are we trying to gauge then?
I guess that, trying to see how he'd respond to similar situations.
Right.
And it's funny when they asked him about the Sabbath day, he said categorically he would not go to work on Saturday, which is his Sabbath, which was an interesting position to take as somebody who's being paid to do a job. So I think it was very interesting for them to delve into everybody's kind of personality and see what kind of person.
Right. I have family who are strict SDS, and I know how Saturdays are like, don't touch.
Is that why you're giving me the side eye, Sharon?
I'm not SDS myself.
Well, moving on, Jubilee Parliamentary Group meeting led by Deputy President William Ruto has resolved to support the Election Amendment Bill fully without further amendments. Jubilee is keen to block party hoppers from leaving the party after nominations, and they want to hear nothing of those seeking a law that would allow them to opt out.
Before the nominations, decide. If you want to be in Jubilee, you are in Jubilee. If you want to be in the next party, be in the next party. So that, this thing called, we are trying to outlaw party hopping, that is not the case. It's a fallacy. It is actually a false narrative. We are saying party hopping is allowed. Choose your party ahead of time. Yes, choose your party ahead of time. And once you have chosen your party, for heaven's sake, stick to it. Mama Magani. Yeah, because we all know here that there are people who are running professional shops in the name of political parties. They are just waiting for Jubilee to have the nomination. They have certificates ready. Pay 50,000, we give you a certificate. Pay 50. They have no philosophy, they have no manifesto, they have no agenda of doing anything. Theirs is just to issue certificates.
Well, I dare say the Deputy President has a point. Choose your party ahead of time and for God's sake stick to it. Another issue of integrity. Don't party hop just for self-interest. But most of these politicians have done this in the past. And I think now the move to kind of curb it is because they want to hold nominations, and if you're not agreeable with them, they don't want you to be able to leave their party. So is it fair, Sharon?
But this is both a democratic and a constitutional right. I mean, Article 85 of the Constitution allows you to hope 30 days, I believe.
Yeah, 30 days before the election.
So, and the argument really has been in both, actually particularly in the National Assembly, that, this is a report. It's not binding until it is a bill. So I think, as much as the spirit, I think it's the spirit of this party hopping and what we want to see ideals in parties, we still are bound by what, the laws that are,
I think that this is quite a good move in my view, because as we discussed this earlier, it hinges on integrity. It also hinges on the sort of ethnic makeup that we have in this country. You have a situation where you have people going for the same seat from different ethnic backgrounds, and they all come under, let's say, Jubilee or CORD. And what happens is, and what has been happening in the past, is that immediately you do not get what you want, your personal ambition supersedes the interests of the party and the interests of the entire constituents that you wish to serve. And so you move with your ethnic community. Suddenly, a national party is fragmented. Okay, and that is part of that is, it seems like it's unfair, but it is actually more unfair to the people who are being forced to go through this. More importantly, you should have an ideology. Your ideology should not be hinged on you getting what you want. Okay, your ideology should be hinged on
but
you.
But our parties really
you should.
Our parties based on ideology.
And if you are really that good, if you think you're that good and you have that many votes, how come you're not making it here? And that's where the Deputy President is right. Pick your party early, and for God's sake, stick to it.
But if I was a prophet, I would say that the nominations are going to be a bit messy.
Not a bit.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes, and there will be people who are not happy with what happened. So what they're starting early by saying don't hop, because in my view, we know the nominations are not going to benefit every single one of you. So they're trying to kind of lock people into their voting blocks, whether they're tribal or national or whatever it is.
Right.
And that strikes me a bit undemocratic.
Okay, ladies, we're out of time. So we have to close this very interesting show now. And just a reminder of viewers, we had asked you on our Twitter poll tonight that do you think that the tourism summit at the coast is a Jubilee PR gimmick? These were sentiments that came very strongly from the Mombasa governor. And just to sample some of your views, Stephen Moreri says that yes, no doubt it was a PR exercise. It is a campaign strategy to woo coast into Jubilee. So unfortunate. Kaikai Kulabusia says that no, tourism as a function is not devolved, and what Joho is doing what is Joho doing to promote tourism in his counting? We have more of your views, but we are out of time. We have to close now. Thank you so much for joining us on this Ladies' Night edition of News Sources. I'm Sharon Omanyi. Have a good evening.
And good night. See you next week.